to do. So I think since I've been home, it's like just an adjustment, but not too bad.
We're live here just now, but we'll give it a little bit, people to jump on, and I'm gonna share this live around a couple of different groups.
Okay.
Let's see here. Definitely the real estate page, because we're talking about estate planning.
Have you worked on any probate sales before?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking, because I did a few divorces and stuff like that that were kind of hairy, but not probate.
Okay. I could just, if it comes up, I can just talk about it quickly.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear more. Let's see. We've got a couple of people on. Hey, everybody. If you're jumping on right now live with us, if you could just comment and let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be great. You can comment with the word live. I know that you've come on live. And we'll get started here in a moment. Just comment and let. Okay, here we go. All right, let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Leo, and you are on the Wisdom Club live interview. And here is where we inspire unlimited possibility with many of my guests, where we can talk about their journey and their inspirations and all the wonderful things that they are doing in the world. And today I have Nathaniel Epstein here on the line with me, and I'm super excited. We've been trying to get connected and for a couple of weeks here, and been super busy. I know in the real estate side, everybody is really busy, but also I guess on your end, you mentioned earlier before we came on in the healthcare sector there that the company you work with are connected with the healthcare. So I'm sure it's super busy there as well with everything, right?
Yeah.
So I would like for you to go ahead and just introduce yourself, let everybody know what you do, and then give us a little personal background, where you're from,
Sure.
where you live, and how you got into law.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Nate Epstein. Currently, I'm a healthcare attorney. It's called, the area of practice is called Managed Care Litigation. So I represent hospitals against insurance companies. I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. But before that, I practiced in estate planning, probates, and trusts for about 8 years. So all throughout law school and even for a few years after. So that's part of my background and something that I have a lot of knowledge about. So I still talk to a lot of people about common things they could, learn from and help them with their estate. I grew up in LA in the San Fernando Valley, 818. I went to college at UCLA, and then I moved to Orange County to go to Whittier Law School. So ever since I moved here in about 2010, I've lived down here. I now live in Lake Forest, Baker Ranch area, which is right near Irvine, with my wife, Michelle. And that's where I'm at now. So I'm glad I could be here today.
Awesome. Well, we love Baker Ranch. Baker Ranch is a newer community, and even though it's in the city of Lake Forest, I
Yeah.
think just that surrounding area and stuff like that feels very, I don't want to say Irvine-ish because that's not the right word. It's
Mhm.
more community oriented, more family
Yeah.
oriented.
Mhm.
So that's a lovely area. Um, so you graduated UCLA, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Local. Were you born and raised here?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Okay. More
Yeah, so
specifically here, Orange County.
yeah, so I was born in LA, and then I moved here. But my mom is from the Philippines. She moved here, I think, in like 1977 or so. And so she's a chemical engineer. And then she met my dad, who also did aerospace engineering, and they met at work. And so they were working by LAX airport, but they were living in the valley. So I grew up there. So yeah,
Oh,
I'm
nice.
half Filipino, half white.
Oh, okay. I would have never guessed.
Yeah, people don't know. My name throws people off, so I
Yeah.
usually have to explain it.
Yeah, and sounds like you had smart parents growing up. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful for sure.
Yeah, I mean they know all the numbers, so it's kind of funny that I went into law because my math skills weren't as good as theirs. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a funny switch. I'm the only lawyer in my family, so
Well, no, that's a really good thing because um, we always talk about it with my Asian guests. Anything academic with law or medicine and all that stuff is all very highly prestigious. So congratulations to you on that and making a great career. So how did you? Well, first of all, I know that your wife is chiming in here on our chat.
okay.
She's probably watching. But I had her, interviewed her. I think it was a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
and so you guys are just like the great couple that I had the privilege of meeting recently, and we had a great chat about her business and IP law and stuff like that. And so you coming into law from a different angle.
Mhm.
Um, but before we kind of dig into that a bit more, how did you choose law as your profession? Earlier on.
So first, my mom wanted me to be an accountant, so I said no. But I was very interested in like stocks and investing, and so I was looking at an MBA. But then when I was doing some research on some like successful people, a lot of them had actually gone to law school. And so I originally thought, okay, well, I could learn a lot of the same things that you learn in business school, but in law school, but the law applies a little bit more. And so I went that route. So it was more of like I was interested in it, and then also because I could do some of the same things I wanted to, plus more, I decided to go to law school. And so I
Very
never
cool.
really thought that I'd end up kind of where I am now. I mean, so I started off wanting to do investments in real estate or investment. And then I was like, oh, I like real property law and I'm doing well in that. And so I thought that would be an aspect. And then during law school, I was fortunate to work at a estate planning firm with essentially a mentor who had like 30 years of practice. So I learned so much from him. And then I've always enjoyed healthcare. And so that opportunity came up, and so I had to take it. So that's where I'm at now.
Super cool. And so, uh, from our earlier conversation, you had a lot of experience in estate planning.
Mhm.
I guess that could be considered a little bit of accounting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had to do some trust accounting and some accounting for that. So yeah, I was like, oh man, this is. I was trying to avoid this.
Yeah. So at least your mom would be proud of that. Your parents.
Yeah, she's happy. Even though she's like, I didn't tell you to go to law school, but I still did it. So that's just the funny thing I make fun of her about.
Cool. So what should I mean? Let's just talk like more basics for the general audience out there.
Mhm.
What should people be concerned about in broad terms about estate planning, and then we can dig a little bit into the probate aspects of it so that people can understand that part. But estate planning, how do you approach it for people who have like never done any work on their planning?
So, I mean, generally, you want to say everyone needs some level of estate planning. I mean, you could do healthcare directives. So if you're in the hospital and you need someone to make medical decisions for you or financial decisions, that's something that you could look into. But I mean, generally, one of the things I'd tell clients is, you start off either when you have a house or you have children, because if you have minor children, you want to appoint guardians for them if something happens to you. Or if you have a house, you don't want to go to probate. So, I mean, real estate agent in Orange County, what's the average value of a house in Orange County, like 650 or something around there?
Oh, it's been steadily going up, especially
Okay.
in the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
we're closer to, I don't think not quite 750 yet, but
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's
720,
gone up since
730.
I've had to give one of these presentations.
Yeah. But then now you're updated.
Yeah. So, when you go to probate, the probate estate is based off all of your assets. So the fees you have to pay is a percentage of those fees. So with 650,000 or so being the example, you're paying about $14,000 in fees. That's just to the attorney. And so then there's also executor fees. So you could be pushing $30,000 to $40,000 in fees before anything even gets distributed. So the best way to do that is to create a trust. And one of the things I tell people a lot about is that if you have a will, that's not enough, because you'll still go to probate, unfortunately. And a lot of people kind of misunderstand that, because in California, the cutoff for probate is $150,000. So if you own a home, you're already there in Orange County. So, or pretty much anywhere in California, really. So people think, oh, I'll just do a will because it's simple, it's quick, but it's not really your best way to protect you. I mean, it's only really good in like a really dire situation where you want to make sure your loved ones get something. But other than that, if you have those things, a house or kids, you definitely want to look into getting a trust instead.
So why is that? So why is will not enough?
So for those reasons, a will, a couple of things. A will is just, if it covers your assets up to $150,000. So if you have anything more, then you're going to go to probate. But then also, if all you have is a will, you could be subject to the laws of California. So if you don't really spell out who you want to get your things, California law sets it. So they have a distribution scheme on who gets what. So let's say you don't want to give something to your brother because for whatever reason, and instead you want to give everything to your cousin or to a friend of yours. If you don't spell that out correctly in your will, the state's going to decide for you where everything goes. And so you're avoiding that, and then you're also avoiding all the fees involved. So a will is only effective when you pass away, and a trust you can make changes to throughout your lifetime as well. So that's some of the main differences between a will and a trust.
So it sounds like the will is like just too simple, like it doesn't cover everything. And when you
could call it that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you have it in the trust structure, then that structure kind of covers,
Yeah, I like to think of a trust almost like a safe, because it holds everything inside of it, but it only really protects those things if the things are in the trust. So so that's like a really simple analogy. You could remember that you want your assets in trust or in the safe, and then you'll hopefully protect it enough so you don't go to probate. I mean, that's the biggest reason, because a lot of people, so the practice I used to be in was like high-end estate planning. So very, very wealthy people, but that's just a small percentage of the population. But a lot of the population, they just have a home and they want to protect that, and they work very hard to take care of their home for their family and their kids. So recommending a trust to protect that is one of the best ways you could make sure that that money is going to who you want it to, instead of to a lawyer or to any kind of penalties.
So for people who want to do that, like they would just seek out somebody like you, and you kind of just create that trust for them. And I'm sure there's a lot of other providers as well, right?
Definitely. I mean, my one recommendation is that you go to an estate planner to do it. A lot of lawyers can prepare estate plannings and trusts, but if you don't have a good background in that or the knowledge of it, you could hit some pretty bad tax penalties. Especially, with the assessor, if you don't title things correctly or you don't put them in the trust or whatnot, you could run into some issues. So you don't want to go to like a like a personal injury attorney to do your estate plan. Just like anything else, you want to go to someone that knows what they're doing. That's like my two recommendations is go to a estate planner that knows what they're doing. And also, if you have only a will, you need to look and see if that's the best thing for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking in my mind, like, hey, if you own a Mercedes, you don't take it to a Volkswagen,
Yeah,
repair
exactly. That's
guy.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's I think that's a wise thing. There's just so many kinds of specialties in law that you want to just pick the right person. Just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you know everything about trust. Doesn't mean
Yeah, and you want to be with someone that's going to grow with you or that you're comfortable with, because they really learn about your family and your family background. So you want to be with someone that you're comfortable with, because in all reality, they're going to grow with your family. So you want someone that you understands what your family dynamics are, and also understand estate planning to help as your family grows.
So if somebody wanted a lawyer to help them with that, and like you said, it could be for trust, but it could be for other things, because you do get in kind of personal, just like an accountant needs to know like all your numbers, what's your business plans and things like that to be able to carry. But with the lawyer, there's just a general practitioner lawyer, like a doctor. You got your general doctor, but then they refer out to other specialty. Does it work like that in law?
Yeah, it does. The one thing that I liked about estate planning is I did get to have my hand in some of those things I liked, like I said, like real property and all that, and business. And so an estate planner does have to understand how, property ownership and business ownership fits into the estate plan. So then you have to have knowledge of that as well. But yeah, if there's anything too crazy or specialty, it's the same thing that the lawyers will refer out to another attorney that you maybe sometimes in their own firm or other firms that have like specialized knowledge.
Right. Okay, cool. And so you touched a little bit on probate, and I guess I'm just kind of thinking out loud for the rest of the audience as well. Um, like a lot of us are a little bit younger. We're not like any big risk of that, but there's always the risk of it. And so your main thing you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you establish your trust and stuff like that, just avoid having to go into probate.
Correct.
Right? And if you do go into probate and there's not enough money, the proceeds to cover, the fees and stuff like that, then you're not going to get anything out of it. What, you just kind of let it go? You just let the government do their thing? What happens?
So it's more of the lawyers. So what happens is, if you have assets, they'll get sold off, or you have to pay your debts. And so that will all get paid first before it gets distributed out to someone. Right. So even though you leave everything, you want everything to go to your kid or something, the estate has to pay for its bills first. So that's what happens during the probate process. So the one other thing about probate that's a little bit that you could say is not good is that it's very public. So it gets filed with the court. Everyone knows how much property is involved, what's being sold and whatnot. When you're dealing with a trust administration, that's all relatively private. So a lot of people don't want people to know their whole family business and what's going on. And then another thing is probate takes a long time. So if Orange County, when I stopped working in that area, it was taking about 14 months for a very simple probate in Orange County because the courts were backed up. So I don't even know how long it would take now because the courts were closed and a lot of the civil judges are working on criminal matters. So it may take even longer. And that's a smooth probate. That's without any issues going on. So you're looking at almost 18 months to just have everything resolved. Fortunately, you can do things like if you need to sell the house or something, you could do that relatively quicker, maybe in about 3-4 months from opening the probate. But it's just do what you can to avoid it. Talk to a lawyer or estate planner, or ask me questions. I'm always available to ask questions. That was one of the great things about my former boss, is that he always said to like help people, and that if they have questions, to always be available for them. So I'm always happy to answer questions if people have them.
Yeah, I love that. Question is free, right? That kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So for most people, if they own a home, they should put it into a trust. They should establish a trust and put that into a trust. And as far as the rest of their personal belongings, they should put it in the same trust.
Yeah, so depending on how the trust is worded, at least the ones I've worked on, there's provisions in there that essentially say everything I own is basically owned by the trust, so that it covers everything. But for things that have title, like a bank account or your house, you're gonna like explicitly change the title to say this is owned by the Leo Trust. So yeah, so that's how it gets all covered.
So just so I heard you correctly, you would establish a separate trust for the house and a
Well,
separate
it would cover everything in one. So it's just one.
umbrella.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be an
Yeah.
umbrella. Okay, because I know I work with a lot of investors, and they always establish one per property, and I understand for accounting, liability and accounting reasons, so that the one home goes underwater does not affect the other ones.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, and that's more for investment property. So like your residential property, you'd keep in the trust. So, and then that gets into all these crazy techniques and stuff like you're talking about to protect everything.
Yeah, no, they do. And but personally, if people wanted to, they could separate out. But there's not really a huge need for most general.
Yeah, and it depends on every situation and what they're willing to spend and everything too. Yeah. Everything, of course, everything costs money and what you're trying to do. So it's best for every person's different scenario, what they want to do.
So just as long as you have established and created a trust before anything bad happens, that you should be good.
It helps, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now let me ask you something. So overall, we talked about establishing a trust and probate. But what about the overarching estate planning aspects of it? Like, what would you recommend for most people?
So for most people, in like a typical estate plan, it would have a revocable family trust, and a healthcare directive, an asset management directive, and then a will or your last will and testament. And so a will is great when it works together with the trust. It's more of a backup. So it's still necessary when you have a trust because it acts as a backup if let's say you bought something, let's say you buy a house and you didn't have time to put it in the name of the trust for whatever reason, and the other backup options don't work. The will be a pour over will that tells the court that, hey, this asset is supposed to be owned by the trust. So it follows the trust distribution and not California distribution laws.
Okay.
So so they all work together. The healthcare directives work while you're alive, and then the will, when you pass away, and the trust can be a little bit of both.
Great. I love it. That was the exact answer that I was looking for. So if you create a will, like I always hear these stories from people regarding like somebody passed away and then they don't know what to do with their remains, or that gets like really super emotional and contested, even though the person has passed away and everything, where to be buried or whatever, and there's costs associated with that. So that type of stuff would be in the will.
You could put it in different places. I mean, you could put some in the will. I mean, it kind of depends on the documents and what you want, what you're trying to do. So you could put in, like, I'd put it in the will, like this person wants to be buried here, like they want to be cremated and whatnot. So I think it really depends. You could put it in multiple places if you want, just to make sure it's seen. But you put it in there. And the one good thing is that you could put things, it's meant to describe your wishes and what you want. So you could put those things in there.
How long does it generally take if there's no, nothing complicated to kind of establish the whole, estate planning package, I guess?
I mean, you could have it done pretty quickly. I mean, it really just depends on the attorney and the client reviewing it. I mean, I've had to do them in one day. I've turned them around one day before. And so it just really depends on how long it takes the client to review, getting into the attorney to speak to them. But the overall process is pretty simple. I mean, I have some friends that do like life insurance, and I'm familiar with the process. And it's essentially the same information you give to a life insurance agent, and then for the attorney to put together. They're going to ask you questions about your family, your kids, and then what you want. And then, I mean, it's not a difficult process. It can be tough to think about sometimes about what you want to do, but it's definitely something that is worth it for your family. And you could, of course, if you want it done as fast as possible, there's ways to get it done as fast as possible.
Yeah. One of the things that I was just reminded was somebody who wanted to create a trust for a home that they're buying, a luxury home that they're buying. Like that could be established basically in a day or two.
Those will be a little bit different because those are, more high-end type trusts. If it's like an insurance trust or like a property trust, that you're going to need specialized planning, and then you do that like with like the advice of an accountant as well. So those might take a little bit more to work on, but in the time it takes you to buy a house, unless you're really lucky and you're making all cash offer
Right.
with like 7-day turnaround or something. But typically in the time it will take to establish escrow and sell the house, you could probably have something set up. But I'm just talking about like your general like revocable family trust and all that.
Right. Yeah, and I was kind of wrapping that in there. So if I had a client that came to me and said, "Hey, I want to buy a house. We found a house today. I want to write an offer. We go into escrow tomorrow." In a normal 30-day escrow, we could establish, a trust within a week, and then we'd be good to go. So, but we want to definitely like do it, as soon as possible. Like once we remove contingencies that is established, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It all
But
depends on
otherwise,
how motivated the client is. If they want it
yeah,
done fast, they'll find a way.
yeah, and like in your profession, like if we need to rush it and stuff like that, lawyers typically just charge more money for rushing and stuff.
Probably. Usually, like I said, it really depends on the lawyer.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
very cool.
I'm sure they
So
will.
awesome. I love all this information because like we don't talk about it enough until it's too late a lot of times. And I personally know a lot of clients that it's happened to way too many times, and I think it's just not worth it, to establish something so that just in case any of this stuff happens. So all this stuff I think just gives you like a start, so that
Yeah.
you have a general understanding. Like, okay, you should do an estate planning, and establish a trust, and all those things, fall into the umbrella,
Mhm.
and get that taken care of. I know that my mom is getting older, and I've been pushing her to do it, but as they get older, they don't want to do anything.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a little stigma like in Asian culture about like talking about death. So it's just another thing you have to, like I said, you want to be comfortable with the person you go to, that they understand, like especially like your culture, you might have differences. So that's another thing too, when you, like I said, when you're trying to pick an estate planner, someone that will understand your family and you get along with. So yeah, there's always those issues, or I don't want to talk about it, it's tough. So yeah, it becomes a little difficult sometimes.
Yeah, so for that reason, for those you listening out there, to establish your estate planning and trust and stuff like that, I would just do it sooner than later, because as your parents get older, like they just don't want to do it, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to think about it, and then it gets really really hard, because it's hard
Yeah.
to get them into the conversation. And so when you do it earlier, then everybody can kind of be at ease and at least have something. Maybe it's not perfect, but you'll have something to take care of you. And it should be, you know, even if it's many, many years ago, at least take care of 80-90% of it or something, right? Cool. So uh, you go by Nate. So
Nate,
Nate, what's driving you nowadays with all your work and stuff like that? Talk to us about what you got going on, what you're working
yeah.
on and stuff.
Okay, so now, I mean, so I talked about earlier, I mean, I switched over to doing healthcare. So the firm I work for, we represent hospitals against the health insurance companies. And so I'm just trying to, with everything going on with COVID and people being busy in hospitals, and then people also don't realize that because all the elective procedures have been canceled. The hospitals are actually struggling at the same time because a lot of those types of patients pays for everything else. So even though we're at a time where hospitals are super busy, they're also cutting back staff and laying off people. So the job I have is super important because we're helping to make sure that they get the money to flow back into the hospital to kind of pay those bills that are from a couple of years ago from the insurance company. So, I mean, that's what kind of keeps me motivated in doing that because, you know, the hospitals are super important right now. And I mean, without their help and the doctors and nurses out there and everything, I don't know where we'd be at right now. So that's what kind of keeps me motivated in my job, knowing that I'm doing a little bit to kind of help with what's going on.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, as a community, we need to just totally just love on our healthcare workers, you know, support the hospitals the best we can. I know our city council here in Irvine have been doing what they can. They've been making, you know, masks for them, you know, shields for them so that they have all that stuff because they're like, it's like going to war every day. Like you don't know if you can come home sick, you know, and you don't know how vulnerable you are until, you know, you get really, really sick with it. So, you know, so I appreciate like, you know, you're kind of like in there helping them uh, on uh, on the finance part. It sounds like just, you know, making sure that they can get continue to operate because hey, if our hospital can't operate, like, can you imagine like in all the stuff that people need right now? And then you're also, you know, a source of, you know, support in many ways for them because they don't want to have to you know, do all the work that they already doing and then
Yeah.
worry about whether or not they're going to be able to keep their doors open or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So so your job is super important, so appreciate you, appreciate
Yeah.
your work.
Appreciate
I mean,
all
I
of them.
consider
Yeah.
you like a healthcare worker, you know, because without you, like, they can't work,
Yeah, we're
right?
considered essential, but luckily they've been keeping us working from home. They were super strict about us coming in the office. That's a nice thing about where I work is that they
Yeah,
wanted to keep us all safe, even though we're doing a really important job right now.
yeah. But fortunately, technology is there for us to do
Yep.
everything that we need to do, so that's great. And you guys get to spend a little extra time, you and Michelle.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
we're working side by side every day. So
yeah.
we haven't got sick of each other yet, but it's super helpful because we bounce ideas off each other and talk about our work and stuff. So it's great.
Yeah, I mean, one great thing I could say about the pandemic is that it really saved a lot of people a lot of time of commuting. Like
Oh yeah.
it was so like you forget how much time you spend in the cars, you
Hmm.
know, driving to work and from work and wherever you end up in between or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So so I think it saved a lot of time to
Hmm.
do, you know, other things. You know, I have this running joke with all my friends and everybody, and some of you out there watching might have heard it before. It took a pandemic, you know, for us to slow down. It took a pandemic for us to spend more time with our family. You know, it took a pandemic for me to learn how to use Zoom,
Yeah.
right? Something like that. So like it can go on, but um, super great. And so I know that I want to be respectful of your time. And
Oh,
so we'll wrap up here, but we always ask our guests the one quote that they would
mhm.
like to share with everybody. You have that ready?
Yeah, sure. It's work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. That was Conan O'Brien. He gave that in a commencement speech a few years ago after that whole thing with the taking over the Tonight Show. So he was in like a kind of a bad place and failure and whatnot. And he just said, I just have to work hard and push through it, and then you'll be able to get through what you're trying to get through. So I've always kind of, and that was like right around when I'm like finishing up law school and you get ready for the
Yeah.
bar and all that. So it was very helpful. And it's just something you got to live by, you know, if you got to treat other people right, because then it'll just make everyone happier. So,
Yeah, awesome. Well, you definitely have worked hard, you know, to get to where you are. And you and Michelle are some of the kindest people I know.
oh,
So
yeah.
that's great.
Thank
And, you know, amazing things are happening for all of you guys. And, you know, Michelle's doing great work helping all the businesses in need right now. And, you know, whether people are launching business or not, or need some additional help and resource, she's just such a service giving person. So, you know, we love that. And then, you working in the healthcare. I think all these things, when we get a little better handle on this virus and stuff, I think we'll all be in better shape, and we have you guys to thank for it, but also that you guys could be in a better place in the future as well. Okay, so so thank you very much, Nathaniel.
Yeah,
I
thanks for having
appreciate
me,
it.
Leo.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time,
Of
and we love listening, learning about all this stuff with estate planning. Like I said before, it's just doesn't get talked about enough, and I hate that people run into trouble with it. And
Yeah.
I, in my position as a real estate agent, a lot of times we get these calls, and it's sort of like after the facts, and so so we have to kind of go in there and try to undo it. And it's people like you, like I would be reaching out to you and say like, hey, I've got such and such in this situation, what can we do? What's the recommendation? So thank you so much. Yeah. All right, everybody. Happy Thursday to you. We're almost to the weekend, and I hope you guys are doing well. And again, the quote is work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. So I think there's a lot of people working hard out there, and I believe that amazing things are going to happen for everybody. So that's it for us. Hope you got a lot of great value out of it. Please comment if you're watching the replay and let me know. And I will be back with another guest. And I will see you guys soon. Have a great Thursday.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nate. Have a good one.
You too.